There we go. Okay. All right, we are now live. So this customer value proposition, go-to-market plan, tech operations, and cash flow formula. With regard to the key elements of the business model, what should Cloudflare keep/start doing with respect to customer value proposition with CVP, GTM, TOM, and CFF? So as for the describing the key elements for customer value proposition, basically, their thing was they have a full range of. Is it pronounced caching or catching?
I think it's catching.
Okay, catching. So a full range of catching and security services to small and mid-sized websites at smaller prices than a lot of the bigger companies. And that's because of their highly efficient infrastructure that allows them to compete on the cost. What do you have for that, for a customer value proposition?
I just put that they have an easy to use and basically a cheap firewall for their customers.
Okay.
So, and more like the same, basically, in more or less words.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I put that they should just keep, that's a good, that they should keep that.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, for organizational implications, I just put that is how, I didn't really understand how to do it for that one, but I just put that's how they would be able to stay in the market, basically, by having that value.
Yeah, I'm wondering if for organizational implications, if maybe that's not for hitting something that they need to change or start doing, and what changes that would make to the organization if they'd have to hire more people, how many more people they would have to hire, and if they needed to maybe change the way their organization was organized, which it really is not. There really is no organization to their business because there are no, aside from the founders, there is no, there's no hierarchy in the business or anything. It's kind of just your engineer team, and then which make up pretty much all the company, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it said at one point, that I think it said in the case study that they only had 2 groups, engineers and then everyone else.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, of the 35 full-time employees, 26 were engineers. The other non-founder employees included a team working on what could loosely be called business development. So that was pretty much it. Business development and engineers, and the founders. That's it. As for the go-to-market plan, excuse me. Since you're majoring in marketing, right? I wanted to see what you picked because mine was I just put word of mouth and resale agreements with hundreds of web hosting companies. What did you have for that?
I put taking the product to the potential users for that one, doing demos and things like that. Or they should, first of all, they should somehow implement or start doing a marketing or sales team, because a lot of the times when it's when companies are selling softwares kind of thing, they go through people obviously want to see what it actually is and want to see demonstrations and things like that of how it works kind of. And so that's the best way to get your customers is to taking your product to them and showing them like, okay, can we set up a time to like do a demo? I can show you like this, and this. This is how it'll help your company. You know, like these are these the problems you're having. Like this software will help fix. You know, kind of thing. So that's what I put.
Okay. So you put getting a sales team down to do all that stuff then?
Yeah, and just kind of having.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, and obviously the organizational implications would be exactly what you said. Would be to get, I guess the change would be to having the sales team then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or creating a sales team. Mm-hmm. Now, what about one of the guys that we have to talk about for like that resigned or whatever? Mm-hmm. Wasn't he? If I can pull up his name here. I think it was David. It was one of the Davids. Mm-hmm. He was, what was it? Yeah, here we go. David Zucker. Did you read about him? Well, even if you didn't. So he sold domain names and provided, so he was kind of like their sales guy. Mm-hmm. He sold domain names and provided web advertising services. Mm-hmm. His biggest thing was he lived, it doesn't say where he lived because I know the Bay Area. I wish they would have said where he lived. I bet you anything it's either up north towards Chico Valley or down south towards Palo Alto.
Wait, where? It said he was in the Bay Area?
Yeah, this, well, the company is in the Bay Area. Uh-huh. And so the sales guy, the one sales guy that they had, well, I don't think he was the one sales guy, but obviously anyways, he was one of the first guys on, and well, he came on in 2011, so I don't want to say first guys, but let's see here. Yeah, he had some personal issues that contributed to his decision to resign. Let's see here. Yeah, so here, he resigned just before. Well, I don't know if they were going to actually monetize. What did he say? Let's see here. He said, yeah, just monetize the company. He said that when he was hired, he told me that they weren't going to launch anything for at least a year because they wanted to get big until they launched something. So he left. Okay, so it says that the hours took a toll. They had a meeting every Friday at 5 o'clock, which lasted for 1 to 1.5 hours. The intention was fantastic, but the timing was brutal. He had a long commute, which means that he didn't get to get home before his kids were asleep. And they changing the time was brought up several times by several different people. But since most of the company was single, since the staff were single people, no one really cared. Mm-hmm. So it just seemed like getting back on to the topic, like relating this back to this, I guess it depends if the company I don't know, because what I'm getting from the case was that the company didn't really need a sales team. I'm hoping you can prove me wrong here, but from what I've read, it said that they didn't need a sales team. So I guess, like, what did you read that implied to you that they needed a sales team?
Let's see. To be honest, I don't know. I just kind of, like I said, I kind of skimmed through it. But let's see.
I mean, don't get me. I think every company should have at least one or two salespeople, like who know about marketing and who know how to sell the product and whatnot.
I don't think it.
But as for getting like a legitimate sales and marketing team,
no, I don't think it was like anything in the case. I think it was more just me like thinking of like experience and like other cases and stuff I've come across in like marketing classes. But I mean, like they don't like need a sales, like a big like sales department kind of thing. But I think like because they, like you said, they had the one or two. I think if they just had like a little handful or just maybe even one or two people, I think it would kind of help as well. Maybe not getting a whole department, but
yeah. Well, I mean, they do need people to stay in contact with the web hosting companies that purchase their product, like GoDaddy and some of those other big website starter companies. So they definitely need salespeople to cover that. I guess I was thinking when you said get a sales team, I was thinking that you were thinking like, you know, like a corporate has like a huge sales department. But yeah. Anyways, okay. But yeah, no, they do need at least a handful of people to make those resale agreements happen. So and to keep their customers happy. Okay. So as for tech oh my gosh, I can't talk today. Tech operations management, the key elements. What you got for that? Oh. And looks like maybe frozen.
Hey.
Oh, are you back? Yep. Oh, yep. There you are. Okay. All right. So did you catch that last question that I had for you?
No. What was it?
I just asked what you had for the key elements for tech operations.
Let's see. What did I put down? This may be wrong because I kind of like I tried to like hurry up and I just put to offer but this is what they already offer, or this is probably like the customer. I realize now I put the same thing as the customer value proposition, just to offer cheap and affordable firewall service that's used for all, and then to care more for like the customer other than like just keep updating. Like
okay. All right.
That may be wrong.
No, that's no, that's I wouldn't say that's wrong though. So yeah, I'd agree with that. Some of the things that I noticed, and really this is just like copy and paste, but so they talked about, and I'm not sure I understand this because I'm not a tech guru person at all. I can maybe type like 20 words a minute. But he talked about like a shift from spinning disk drives to flash memory based on solid state drives or SSDs. So that I guess the shift from the spinning disk drives to the SSDs, he said it greatly boosted speeds at which drives could write and access data. So the CDNs, which were their competition, like the corporate, major corporation, like their firewall team or whatever, we're still using spinning disk drives, whereas Cloudflare was now using these SSDs, so they could gain performance and speed while decreasing their costs, I guess. And then they use what they have. And another thing was that they use what they have to maximum capacity. So like, because some of these tech companies will have like a lot of big hardware, and they'll only be using like 50% of 50% of its capacity. Whereas these guys were using 90% to 95% of the capacity of the hardware that they had. So it saved on expenses for them. It did cost them in quality a little bit, being able to like take down new problems that came up with when a large amount of customers had these bigger problems. So that they ran into some problems there, but aside from that, it saved them on time and space, and not time, but at least money. So that's what I got for that. And then their cash flow formula did not make sense to me.
Yeah, nope.
Not just.
I just put for that one like. I felt like I thought I read that they had one already set up, but it needed to be done better. Like just the execution, I guess, of like. Actually, I don't know what I'm even talking about. Never mind. My notes are like all scattered and I can't like.
Oh, that's fine. At least you got something. Let's see here. Where was it? Customer acquisition. No. Profit formula. Okay. So from what they said, that with the amount of employees that they had, their expenses would equal at 35 employees, their expenses at 150,000 per employee. Their expenses would come out to 5.25 million per year. So total expenses would be 7.85, implying a 3.05 million loss at the current scale they're at. But it doesn't. Excuse me. So this is just me not having enough time to look through properly, but it talked about a $20 monthly subscription fee,
Uh-huh.
and then like they also had like their basic services were like free. I didn't see like another subscription like a 15 or $40 for a pro version or something like that. Did you see anything for like a pro version or anything like that? Where they would charge more than $20 or something?
No, I think that was the only thing I read too, unless it was like somewhere that I missed it. But it was my understanding too that they just had like just that $20 subscription. I don't think it like went into detail about or wait, hold on. Exhibit 4 says there's like the plans.
Because that's the thing. I mean,
oh wait, yeah. So the pro version was like $20 for the first site. And then there was a business subscription. Well, they had a free one, first of all, and then they had the pro one, which was $20 a month. And then a business one, which was $200. And then an enterprise one, which was like starting at $3,000 per month.
okay, all right. So does it say anywhere about how many, like the percentage of customers that had each subscription plans?
I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah. That's the thing. Like, if it gave us like a percentage of how many, like, if it, like a percentage of customers that used each plan, then it'd be easy just to write up a cash flow formula for it. But
Don't offer
that doesn't really give you anything. All right. Should we just move on from that question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
And then working for how long would it? Oh, did you get how long it would take to become profitable?
No.
I
Did you?
no, but I thought they were already profitable. So, like, did they not?
Well, that's the thing. Like, they said that um, they didn't need to market because they had enough customers, but then they say that they're saying down by the business model on profit formula on page 6, that at the end of the paragraph they say at paying 150,000 per head at 35 employees, that would equal 5.2 million, which would bring total expenses to 7.85 million, which would imply a $3.05 million loss at the current scale. So this is kind of confusing.
So is that saying that if they don't hire, because it asks like if they hire more engineers, how long? So if they don't hire engineers, they're going to go downhill.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, because I mean, they obviously, um, from reading why, the 5 employees resigned, it seemed like the most common thing was that they weren't doing what they wanted to be doing, and they were way over. Like everyone was pretty much was on 24-hour call, more or less. And
I felt like they hired people with a lot of skills, but they weren't really organized, and they didn't have specific jobs for them. Like their objectives were like unclear. And I think that they were more of like we have to work on this, I guess we're gonna work on this kind of thing. Or they were just they didn't really have any they were last minute. They were like, oh, we need to do this. Well, I guess this is priority. Like, I guess we need to do this. Like, they weren't, and I don't think they even had like an HR. Oh, shit. Who's watching Netflix?
No. No, they didn't. It was really through their own networking is where they found the people that they hired. And just, I mean, like you said, they didn't have any formal, aside from the meeting every Friday afternoon, and the little sticky notes of things to get done for each person. They didn't have a training set up for anyone. They didn't have any sort of protocol like you report to this person. Well, it was loose, that people were supposed to report to what's her name? One of the co-founders.
Oh, wasn't it? There was somebody who said that they didn't like the title of manager or something like that because they didn't manage people. They just wanted to like assist them.
Yeah, that was that was the founder of the company. What's his name? Matthew. Yeah, Matthew Prince.
Yeah. I feel like if you're gonna hire people with a lot of skill but not give them specific jobs, they really don't have any like motivation. Then they're just kind of like, oh, I guess I'll just pick up this task kind of thing. There's no reason for them to stay, or there's no motivation for them. So I think that was their issue as well.
Yeah. So, I guess going on to question 3, why does Cloudflare management want to get big fast? What benefits does Cloudflare receive from scale? So I guess the question in the question is, does Cloudflare have economies of scale? Marginal costs, i.e. marginal cost decrease with increase. Okay, so does the cost decrease with the increase of customers?
Does the cost decrease with the what?
Yeah, it's got here. So the question is, does Cloudflare have economies of scale? And then it's got in parentheses, i.e. marginal costs decrease with the increase in customers, or do marginal costs decrease with the increase in customers? So we'll add in new customers, decrease the costs, the expenses.
I think it may be, and I may be wrong, but thinking about it, it might diminish costs, but they would have to reallocate those costs into like employees. If that makes any, like, I don't.
Okay, so you're saying increasing the number of customers would decrease costs if you said allocated what to employees?
If they would just, it would, but they'd have to. It wouldn't. I feel like it wouldn't really diminish costs. It would just have to be, the cost would just have to be reallocated.
Okay, yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So
I didn't really look at the economies of scale, but I did figure out why, or I do have an answer to why they want to get big fast.
Go ahead and answer that. So why? Because I don't have the answer to that.
Oh, I just put that I think they want to grow fast because it seemed like this was a first to market kind of industry. Like if they don't grow fast, then people will be like, oh, this is really cool, but they aren't delivering as well as they could. Mm-hmm. And so then other companies will come in and have better funding and just kind of surpass them and like blow them out of the water. So it seems like a kind of like first to market kind of play.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. From what I've read, that definitely makes sense. Because all the employees talk about that word, that resign, talk about how the idea of the company was great. It was because it's this new idea. And obviously with any new idea, if you're, just like you said, once someone else picks up on that same idea, you could be blown out of the water if you don't scale quick. Mm-hmm. But was that?
Huh?
I think maybe that was in the section where he was talking about getting the Series B, Series B funding. I just don't remember where in the case study that was. I'm trying to find it.
But do you think that
go ahead? I'm sorry.
I was going to ask, do you think that there should be a balance between growing too fast and then just kind of slowly? Because they want to grow fast, but is there like, is there, there should there be a balance between just like speedily like growing like crazy and then just kind of like slowly seeing how the market is and growing in that way, just kind of slowly?
With this type of company, I think that this is kind of one of those things where, since they're kind of pioneering this idea, um, not necessarily pioneering the idea, but more so pioneering the who they're segmenting, who their market is, because obviously corporations have teams who do that, like who for a living, look at their and manage their firewalls and whatnot. I know. My question to you is, from what you read from the case study, did you get the idea that this is a new idea, or just a new way, and not a new way to approach it, but just a new segment, a new market segment?
I don't know. That's it. I got that it wasn't a new segment per se, because of course there's gonna be like a segment, like a market segment, or like a industry of like technology and softwares and like firewalls. But I thought it was just like a different concept, or like you said, like approach to it.
Okay.
And that's why I said like that why they wanted to get big fast was because it was a kind of like, oh, we have this like new approach to, we need to move on it. Kind of like I said, like first to market play.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So it's the new approach per se, then. Okay. Gotcha. So as far as, I guess, what do you think as far as scaling fast or slow, or just, growing naturally? Do you think they need to be growing fast, or do you think they can afford to grow naturally?
I think if they grow too fast, then they can't be properly funded or supported throughout. So they would have to rely more on their own sales and revenue.
Okay.
And the question is like, is that going to be enough for them? Like, I don't know if that makes any sense. Like, if they grow too fast, then they won't have time to actually make a plan and like execute like funding and things. And so they have to be, or like support. So they would have to just rely on their own sales and revenues. And like, would that be enough to hold them up?
Yeah.
So like, I think they just need a detailed plan and just execute it well.
Okay. Yeah, detailed plan, maybe a little bit more structure. So do you think once they have that structured, then they could grow fast? Do you think?
Yeah, I think like any business, like once you get the internal, like organizational thing, like kinks worked out, and then once you get like a plan put in place and like a great execution plan, then I think, yeah, I think it should, they should look into growing faster or expanding. But it seems like right now they don't seem like they have any long-term goals. Like they're just not organized.
Yeah. It's definitely I've got a way to implement this idea. Let's find some talented people, get them on the same idea. And just so everyone's happy, let's make sure, no one's technically a manager or anything like that. And obviously, if they ended up doubling employees, then that could and would have major issues and implications and problems. Because if you stay small, like under 30 employees, I could see how you could get by with like not a whole lot of structure.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think anything above that, you're gonna need some sort of structure, something that's more than what they've got.
Especially if they want to quote unquote grow fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, they couldn't.
Yeah. Exactly.
But then I don't even know where I think we just kind of skipped around with questions because we answered.
Yeah.
We talked about the employees and then suggestions for not growing fast.
So let's see here. Okay, so now the discussing recent resignations for each one.
Yeah, I think we a little bit.
So let's see. For each one, list reasons why they left, then ask why they should. Then ask what would have to change for that person to have stayed.
I know, didn't one of them quit because there wasn't like an ability to move up or anything or something like that?
Yeah, so I guess let's go from the first person. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Dale Kiefling. Kiefling?
What
Dale Kiefling.
page is this?
Okay, this is at the bottom of the case study, page 10.
Okay, that's it.
Where it says in bold 5 resignations, starting with Dale Kiefling.
Oh,
so list the reasons why they left.
That was on call, or like there wasn't. People had a problem with like the times and things like that. The only people that enjoyed working were the ones that didn't really have families, so they were super driven. But it was just a little unorganized and like this is one, right? Where he was on call 24/7.
Yeah, he was on call 24/7, and there were 3 of them, but then let's see here. Yeah, but then one of them quit or something. And they hadn't hired anyone because they were so busy looking for someone as talented as the people that they had got for this position. But the problem was that anyone who had that talent wanted flexible hours, which obviously that position calls for very non-flexible hours. And so his pager was going off every 8 minutes on average. And he had just had a kid, I think, too, right? So here.
Oh shoot, FML. So just a little heads up, my computer's at like 5% and I don't have the charger to it.
So, okay, that's fine.
I just like, sorry. I just looked at it just now because it was like 5%. So
that's fine.
Not the best session we've had, but
no, that's all right. It's okay. At least we're doing it.
Yeah. But with that one, I feel like they should just have like set times. They shouldn't, because I would hate to, like, personally, I would hate to be working in like a kind of like professional setting that what had me on call 24/7, like every day, all day.
Yeah.
I think just like that.
Yeah, that one. So what needed to change in order for him to stay? They have to hire on at least 2 or 3 other technical operations specialists, because they need to be able to cover a 24-hour period and still work in shifts. But you've got to have more than 3 people for that. You've got to have at least 4 to 5, because I mean, you've got to take into consideration vacations. You've got to take into consideration, respecting someone's ability to be able to go to church or whatever. Also, if someone's about to have a kid, they're going to have to go on, what's it called, paternal or maternal leave?
Maternal leave.
Yeah. Well, and dads, by law, you get a maternal leave.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and that'll come up with another guy, I think. So.
And then there's who's the next one? David. Oh, this was the one that he didn't. This is the same thing. A lot of people had problems with their roles. Like they didn't really know what roles they were actually fulfilling. It was just kind of everyone does whatever. So I think with this one, they should establish some kind of they should establish some kind of like department or system of like control. Because like I said, didn't they say that there was just 2 groups, like engineers and then everyone else?
Mm-hmm.
So I think if they just had a little bit more of like organization, like departments and maybe like levels to where people could report or knew like, okay, this is what I have to do. This is who I report to, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So why did David Conrad quit?
He quit because it said that he was really excited about the job offer at Cloudflare, but he realizes now that it wasn't a clear role, or he wasn't clear on what role he was actually fulfilling.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he left because the role he thought he was going to fill was never materialized.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And they told him, he said every time I brought up a suggestion, they said, no, we don't want any structure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So could they have done anything to keep him on, do you think?
Just kind of reorganizing their internal structure, I guess. Like I said, creating some kind of department or some kind of levels. Not like a hierarchy, but like a hierarchy, just having people in place like that you could report to, like, oh, I'm doing this task, this is who I report to, kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. And next was David Zakur.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, this is the advertising guy.
Mm-hmm.
Who had the family who traveled over an hour to get to work. And I don't blame him, because who wants to live in San Francisco where you pay $1 million for a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom house
Mm-hmm.
that's literally on top of another house.
Yeah. No, people will pay
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah. No, there's a reason why they got rid of the San Francisco mission, and it starts with and ends with money.
No, yeah. I heard. I have an aunt that lives out there. Well, not in San Francisco. She lives out in like Livermore. Like it's. I think it's supposedly 30 minutes, but in reality, it's like a 2-hour drive considering traffic.
More?
Mm-hmm.
That was one of my areas for 6 months.
Really?
Yep.
That's cool, but yeah. And then I would go out to visit her sometimes, just because it was easier to go out there during the breaks than to fly all the way back home to Louisiana. But like it's ridiculous. Like she was telling me, some people will pay like I think like $2,000 or $1,000 for rent for like a closet, like literally just like a tiny closet with just a mattress, and that's
Yeah.
rent
Yeah.
$1,000 like for a closet. Like,
It's ridiculous. Now, with that being said, me being a hopeful future pilot says I have read some things of some guys who will literally instead of carpooling, it's flight pooling,
mm-hmm. Oh,
um, where you and your buddy hop in a little Cessna and fly. So instead of an hour or hour and a half to work, it'll take you 20 minutes to get there.
Huh, that's cool.
Yeah. But the only problem is it's not worth it unless it's more than 2 hours away, like driving time, because it's a 20-minute prep to get the plane going, and then it's like a 15-minute prep to get the plane parked and everything. So, yeah. Part of me says just get a plane and plane pool, but,
Can't all live lavish.
especially San Francisco airport. Like even a private airport down in San Francisco is gonna cost you a lot just to park it. I mean, you're looking at like spending $100 a day just to park an airplane for a couple hours. So, with that being said, the only way to keep him on would be to change the meeting time, the Friday meeting time, and to hire another person because same issue is it seems like the workplace there was very is just a very no, I don't want to say anti-family culture, but not family-friendly culture. Long nights. I mean, your phone could be ringing at any time. So, oh, and your computer died. So now I'm finishing this by myself. Okay, and so that's David's occurred. Okay. So as for answering the question of why he left, um, he left, let's see here, because okay, yeah, he didn't have his job role. He didn't really do because um, he was in advertising for the company and setting up deals with website companies, and that never monetized at all. In addition, he had a long drive to work, and so he wouldn't get to see his kids until after they were asleep. So essentially, he'd never see his family. So that was why he left. Okay. And then talks about two more employees that left. A jack of all trades engineer. His work was piling up on him. But for that engineer, it was all about the challenge, and he felt like he wasn't being challenged. So that's why he left. Or to keep him, they would have to move him to create some sort of new product or idea. So maybe as a product manager or something. Okay. So is it worth to make? Is it worth it to make those changes to keep the people who left? Yes, I would say yes, because that would bring in more structure to the company, bringing in some more tech ops. Then for David Conrad to keep him his position as sort of organizing people would have to be met. And doing this at the same time would also organize the company more and get it ready to scale. Of course, with the jack of all trades engineers, maybe putting them in charge of like a product manager. If you're going to hire more employees, you're going to have to start having managerial positions. It's just that's the way the cookie crumbles, I think. As for what would happen to the other employees if the changes were implemented, I think initially, in fact, I don't think there would be. I don't think there'd be any complaints if the co-founders just came in and talked to the company and explained how, in order to increase the company, they would have to increase in employees, which means they'd have to, which means they would have to get more structured and organized and start having managers actually. I think at this point, with the workload that everyone has, I don't think there would be too much opposition to that. And if anyone disagreed, it would be because they wanted to stay at the size the company was at, which would mean that they have a different vision for the company. So So as for why do people work at Cloudflare, obviously it's a new way of implementing an idea. So there's a huge opportunity for market share. And with any new implementation of an idea, there's a challenge behind that. And I think that's why the people who work there is because there's some sort of challenge for them. And that's part of what keeps them motivated, I think. As for did they join the company so they could be told what to do? No. However, once the company gets to scale to me, I would draw the line at 30. You've got to have some structure. And that doesn't mean that you have to be told what to do, but I think everyone has to have something to be working on. And that has to come from somewhere. There's got to be some structure, some organization for an idea of a project to get from one hand to the next hand. unless of course they can create more automation, which would mean that the employees would have less to do. So that could also be the case. Okay. Um, as for implementing more process and structure, should they hire a VP of HR and start using titles? I think if they're going to get any bigger, then yes, they do. And that's just to control the chaos. Okay. Should they slow down on growth? If they want market share, then no, they need to increase in growth. But again, they need structure before they can do that. I think that as far as motivation, they will still have challenges to take on. It'll just be more organized for who takes on what challenges. And let's see here. As for what will happen to the cost structure and profitability of the company, I think if anything, it would increase it because they would be able to understand exactly who's working how many hours more than they would. So that way people are working less overtime and are not um, and that's less expenses in the long run. So, yeah. Okay, those are all the questions. And we see you next time. Thanks for watching.